Trump's plan to end the war with Russia, this is the final words in Ukraine. Reuters presents the plan presented by Trump's top advisors. Two of Donald Trump's top advisors presented him with a plan to end Russia's war in Ukraine if he wins the presidential election. That includes telling Ukraine it will only receive more U.S. weapons if it starts peace talks. The United States would simultaneously warn Moscow that any refusal to negotiate would result in an increase in American support for Ukraine. Retired Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, one of Trump's national security advisors, said in an interview. And under the plan drawn up by Kellogg and Fred Fleitz, who both served as chiefs of staff on Trump's National Security Council during his 2017-21 presidency, there would be a ceasefire along the prevailing battle lines during the peace talks. As Reuters reveals, they presented their strategy to Trump, and the former president responded positively. Fitz said, he said, "I'm not claiming that he agreed with this or that he agreed with every word, but we're pleased to get the response that we got," he said. However, Trump's spokesman, Stephen Chang, said only statements made by Trump or authorized members of his campaign should be considered official. The strategy outlined by Kellogg and Fleitz is the most detailed plan yet drawn up by associates of Trump, who has said he could quickly settle the war in Ukraine if he defeats President Joe Biden in November 5th election, though he has not discussed details. The proposal would mark a dramatic shift in the U.S. position on the war and face oppositions from European allies and within Trump's own Republican Party. The Kremlin and Ukraine's foreign ministry did not respond to requests for comment on this plan. Kellogg said, concerning the suspension of Ukraine's membership to NATO, Kellogg said it would be vital to bring Russia and Ukraine to the negotiating table quickly if Trump wins the election. "We're saying to the Ukrainians, you have to come to the negotiating table, and if you don't come to the negotiating table, the support from the United States will dry up," he said. "And we say to Putin, he has to come to the table, and if you don't come to the table, then we're going to give the Ukrainians everything they need to do away with you on the battlefield." Now, according to their research paper, Moscow could also be lured to the table of the promise of Ukraine's NATO membership being delayed for an extended period of time. Russia invaded neighboring Ukraine February 2022. The front lines have moved since late that year, despite tens of thousands of victims. Now, Fleitz stated that Ukraine does not need to formally cede territory to Russia as part of their plan. And still, he said, Ukraine is unlikely to regain substantial control of all its territory in the near future. He said, "Our concern is that this has become a war of attrition that would do away with a whole generation of young men. A lasting peace in Ukraine would require additional security guarantees for Ukraine," Kellogg and Fleitz said. And Fleitz added that equipment of Ukraine to the teeth would likely be a key element of this. President Trump has repeatedly stated that a top priority in his second term will be to quickly negotiate an end to the Russian-Ukraine war, said Trump spokesman Chang. And the war between Russia and Ukraine would never have happened if Donald Trump was president. So sad, is what he said. The Biden campaign has said Trump is not interested in standing up to Putin. Donald Trump praises Vladimir Putin at every opportunity he has, and he's made it clear that he's not going to stand up to Putin or stand up for democracy, campaign spokesman James Singer said. Who has the upper hand here? Some Republicans will be wary of paying for more resources to Ukraine under the plan. The U.S. has spent approximately less than $70 billion in military aid to Ukraine since Moscow's invasion. What Trump supporters want to do is cut aid, if not turn off the spigot, said Charles Kupchan, a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Putin said this month that the conflict would end if Ukraine agreed to abandon its ambitions to join NATO and hand over 4 eastern and southern provinces claimed by Russia. During a United Nations Security Council meeting last week, the French and British ambassadors reiterated their view that peace can only be pursued when Russia withdraws from Ukrainian territory and position shared by Kiev. Now, several analysts also expressed concern that Kellogg and Fleets' plan could give Moscow the upper hand in the talks. What Kellogg is describing is a process that leans in the direction of Ukraine ceding all the territory that Russia now holds, said Daniel Fried, former Assistant Secretary of State who has been involved in the Russian policy. During a podcast interview last week, Trump ruled out committing U.S. troops to Ukraine and appeared wary of Ukraine joining NATO. Biden has consistently pushed for more aid to Ukraine, and his administration supports its eventual NATO membership. Earlier in June, Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a 10-year bilateral security agreement. Please leave your comments about this, and thank you for your support. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.